parking lot classes are the best.
Because it's the last. I try to do the first, but not that you.
First half.
All right, so let me get it started. All right, let's look at the speech. Make sure you know what we're doing. You need to memorize all the way down to, and say these wounds I had on Christmas Day. Don't do that, you do that line, don't do after that line. So you read through the line and say these wounds I had on Christmas Day. Yeah. If you want to just look at, well, go get it. If you got a book, yeah, make sure. All right, so we're going to, thank you, don't have to worry about that, I guess. We're going to pick up where we left off yesterday. Remember, I gave you the schedule. You know the schedule for this. Over the next 2 weeks, we basically finish this. And it's a quiz grade, and most people do it very well. So we are Act 2, Scene 3. And I'm not going to tell you my page number because that doesn't help you, but Act 2, Scene 3, well, the beginning of Act 2, Scene 3. I do have a book now. Everybody has a copy of the new book, right? I do too, except I'm not using it yet. I'm too attached to my old book. All right, so here we are. You guys? All right, so I told you the other day that one of Shakespeare's techniques is using scenes that are juxtaposed with each other, right? Did I give you that word, juxtaposed? Well, it's on the board, you need to know it. It means, I think it literally means on top of each other, like one on top of the other. It indicates they're really close together. So what he likes to do is put scenes back to back. Even that term suggests the word juxtapose, back to back, right? And the last scene, Henry, was, well, what was that scene about? This Henry and the three traitors. What was that about? Yeah.
He found out these three traitors are trying to kill him, and he basically called them out for it, and then he sentenced them to death.
Right. So it was all about Henry being betrayed and the way he dealt with it. The beginning of Act 3, Scene 3, just keep that in mind as we read this act. So we're now moving, two things that are, another thing juxtaposed here is the nobles versus the commoners. So that last scene was about nobles, and this scene is about commoners. So we need our hostess, we need our pistol. Anybody? We'll get into it. Would you read Bardolph? Charlotte, would you read them? It's kind of all there together. So hostess, Bardolph, them, and pistol. And would you read the boy? Yeah.
Let's go with the boy.
All right, we go.
Fix the boy.
All right, that's good. So we're on beginning of scene 3 of Act 2.
No, for my manly heart doth yearn. Bardolph, be blind, nymph, rouse thy vaunting vein. Boy, bristle thy courage up, for Falstaff he is dead. We must earn therefore.
Okay, remember who Falstaff was? Who was Falstaff? Yeah.
The caretaker of the king,
The what?
the father figure of caretaker.
Yes, good. In the previous plays, he's dead. Who killed him? Henry did. Killed him by breaking his heart, by dropping, that's the friendship. It's not the same thing, but it's still interesting that juxtaposed to the scene where Henry has been betrayed by people who wanted to kill him, we have this scene where Henry betrays somebody and kills him. You see the connection? They're together so that you see that. And so what does that tell you about Henry as a character?
It's not perfect.
He's not perfect. You could say he's complex, kind of like you and me. We are all hypocrites about certain things. We say one thing, but we do another. We don't like somebody else doing the very thing that we do. And it's okay when we do it, but it's not okay. We have double standards. That's the human condition. And Henry, that's why he's a great character, because he's like us. We can relate to that. So let's go back to Falstaff is dead. We'll go back to Bardolph.
What I remember was that I was very sorry for your Peter and having no help.
Yeah, sure, he's not in hell, he's in Author's bosom. If ever a man went to Author's bosom, a may refiner end and went away, it had been any Christian child. Parted in just between 12 and 1, and at the turning of the tide. For after I saw him fumble with the sheets and play with flowers, and smile upon his fingers' end, I knew there was but one way, for his nose was as sharp as a pen, and about with the green fields. How now, Sir John, quoth I, what man, feel good cheer, so cried out, God, 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 3 or 4 times now. I to comfort him, bid him I should not think of God. I hoped there was no need to trouble himself with any such thoughts yet. So bade me lay more clothes on his feet. I put my hand into the bed and felt them, and they were as cold as any stone. Then I felt to his knees, and so hard and upward, and all was as cold as any stone.
They say he cried out of sack.
That's a bit.
And the woman,
Nay, that is an
Yes, they did. And said that they were devils incarnate.
I could never abide incarnation. 'Twas a color he was never liked.
He said once the devil would have him about one.
I did in some sort indeed handle order, but then he was renewed, and talked of the war of Babylon.
Do you not remember he saw a flea stick upon Pharaoh's nose, and he said it was a black soul burning in hell?
well, the fool is the one that maintained that fire, that's all the riches I got for it. Shall we shop? The king will be gone from Southampton.
Come, let's away, my love, give me thy lip. Look to my chattels and my movables. Let senses rule, the word is pitch and pay, trust none. For oaths are straw, men's faith are wafer cake, and hold fast is the only dog might duck. Therefore, Veto, be thy counselor. Go clear thy crystals, yoke fellows in arms. Let us to France like horse leeches, my boy, to suck, the very blood to suck.
And that's but unwholesome food, they say.
Touch her soft mouth and march.
Farewell, hostess. I cannot kiss, that is the humor of it, but I
Let housewifery appear. Keep close, I thee command.
Farewell, adieu.
All right, so 2 more things about this. I'd like to point out, there are no questions about this. You need to know that this scene juxtaposes with the other scene. All right, John, I hope you're paying attention to this. I mean, you're playing the class, like just focus on your job, okay? Be a great idea. All right, author's bosom, in case you're interested, Jesus told a parable about this poor man who died, and he went to Abraham's bosom. That was an expression to describe paradise. When people died, they went to heaven. So, but that's not what she says. She says author's bosom. That's because she gets author confused. Author, the round table. Author confused with Abraham. The other thing is, she says this ironically. Did he cry, God, God, God? 3 or 4 times. Now I had to comfort him, bid him he should not think of God. I hope there would be no need to trouble himself with such thoughts yet. Isn't that an odd way to look at prayer? You're only going to pray when you really, really, really need him, like you're going to die. That's the only time in your entire life you want to talk to God. It's not time to talk to God yet. No need to be troubled about God. It's kind of interesting the view these people have of God. So I think that's the only 2 things we need to look at. There was some comedy here. I don't know if you're aware of it. It's a dark humor, but these are comic characters. You should be aware of that. So we got to switch over now to France. First time we see the French. They have a king, and we need a king of France. There's somebody. Ben said Ben will do it. I need a dauphin. All right, you can be the dauphin. We need a constable. Sarah, would you be the constable? Is not a policeman. It's the commander of the French army. You got the constable, you got the king, and then we'll need a messenger or 2. You could be the messenger, Lily, and would you be Exeter, Libby? All right, I don't know how far we'll get into this, but, and then we'll be at the end of Act 2 if we get through this thing. All right, so why don't we start with King of France, which is Ben.
Thus comes the English with full power upon us, and more than carefully it us concerns to answer royally in our defenses. Therefore, Dukes of Berry and Bretagne, of Brabant, of and of Orleans, shall make forth, and you, Prince Dauphin, with all swift dispatch to line, and do repair of our towns of war, with men and courage and with means defendant for England. His approaches make as fierce as waters to the sucking of a gulf. It fits us then to be as provident as fear may teach us out late examples left by the fatal and neglected English upon our feet.
My most redoubted father, it is most need we arm us against the foe. For peace itself should not so dull a kingdom. To war no more, no quarrel were in question. But that defenses, musters, preparations should be maintained, assembled, and collected, as were a war in expectation. Therefore I say, 'tis we all go forth to view the sick and feeble parts of France, and let us do it with no show of fear, no, with no more than if we heard that England were busy, with some more stance. For my good lady, so she is so idly
King.
King, my bad. Her scepter so fantastically born by a vain, giddy, shallow, humorous youth, that fear attends her not.
All right, we need to answer the first question. That would be 28. So the first question that we're going to answer, does the French king take Henry's invasion seriously?
Yes.
The answer is yes.
Yes.
He even mentions this, he says, as fear may teach us out of late examples left by the fatal and neglected English upon our fields. That's a reference to these two battles, which you need to remember. You studied these across the hall. Crécy in 1346, Poitiers in 1356. That's what he means, the late example. We underestimated them twice before and they beat us. We can't afford to underestimate them again, which they do, and they lose this one also. This is the battle in this book, the famous battle. As I understand it, these were the three great battles of the 100 Years' War, which was longer than 100 years. But they remained in a state of battle for that long. This is part of the question asked about the Dauphin. So what's the Dauphin's attitude toward the English? Yes, Sarah.
I don't think he underestimates England. He says,
Yeah.
by vain, giddy, shallow, humorous youth, that fear attends her not. Saying that the French is so strong that they don't fear.
Right. He said no reason to fear them because of Henry. Henry is that idle, vain, giddy, shallow, humorous kid that nobody's afraid of. But there again, he's making the mistake of underestimating the English, as did his daddy and granddaddy and great-granddaddy, whoever they were. All right, so the constable will speak, and he is the king, he is the commander of the army. So, constable.
Oh, peace, Prince Dauphin. You are too much mistaken in this king. Question your grace, the late ambassadors. With what great state you heard their embassy? How well supplied with noble counselors, how modest in exhortation and withdrawal, how terrible in constant resolution. And you shall find in vanities for them. Where first the outside of the Roman bridges, covering discretion with a coat of folly, as gardeners do with ordure,
Wales is not so, my Lord High Constable, but though we think it so, it is no matter. In cases of offences, 'tis best to weigh the enemy.
To weigh the enemy.
Wait,
'Tis best to weigh the enemy.
that's not what mine says. Oh, okay. 'Tis best to weigh the enemy more mightily than he seems, so the proportions of defence are filled, which of weak and niggardly protection, but doth like a miser spoil his coat with scanting a little cloth.
And just note that the constable also respects the English. He says they are well supplied with noble counselors, and so forth. So he talks highly of the English. He does not underestimate. Son, you're doing it again. You just can't focus on just like pay attention to yourself here, not Luke, not Daniel.
Who's laughing at you?
Just, I mean, we are in the 9th grade. Let's try to act like it occasionally. All right, King of France.
Think we King Harry strong, and princes look you strongly on to meet him. The kindred of him hath been flushed upon us, and he is bred out of that bloody strain, hath haunted us in our familiar pattern. Witness are too much memorable shame, when Cressy battle was fatally struck, and all our princes captive by the hand of that black name Edward, Black Prince of Wales.
Okay, underline it. That's a name you need to know. He's been dead for, well, he was fighting in 1346, so 46, 54, 60, 65 years earlier. But he isn't important. He's Henry's relative. That's why Henry's a good fighter, because it's in his DNA. You know, he gets it from his great uncle. Yeah, keep reading.
Wells that his mountain sire on mountain standing, up in the air, crowded with the golden sun, saw his heroical seed and smiled to him, mangle the work of nature and deface the patterns that by God and by French fathers had 20 years been made. This is a stem of that victorious stock, and let us fear the native mightiness and fate of him.
Ambassadors from Harry, King of England, do pray admittance to your majesty.
We'll give them a present audience. Go and bring them. You see this chase is hotly followed from.
Turn head and stop pursuit, for coward dogs must spin their mouths when what they seem to threaten runs far before them. Good my sovereign, take up the English sword, and let them know of what a monarchy you are the head. Self-love, my league, is not so vile as self-neglecting.
Neglecting.
From our brother of England,
From him, and thus he greets your majesty. He wills you in the name of God Almighty that you divest yourself from that apart. The borrowed glories that by gift of heaven, by law of nature and nation, belongs to him, and to his heirs, namely the crown and all the lordships and honors that pertain by customs and ornament time. Under the crown of France, that we may know, 'tis no sinister nor awkward claim, picked from the warm holes of long vanished days, nor from the dust of old oblivion rain. He sends you the post level of the law. In every branch truly demonstrative, willing you overlook this pedigree, and when you find him evenly derived from his most famed and famous ancestors, Edward III, he bids you the resign of your crown and kingdom, indirectly held from him the native and true challenger.
So,
or
Exeter is the messenger. Well, there's a messenger, but then there's the Exeter. And Exeter is saying, this is what Henry demands that you do. Quit, resign, get off that throne, and because Henry, and he gives him a sheet of paper saying, this proves it. If you look at his background and his family tree, he should be king of France. Now, what do you think any king, any president what should be the attitude of any president or king when some guy comes in there from the enemy and says, you need to get off that throne, the other guy is truly the king, you need to resign? What should his response be?
He should like arrest them or
mean, he can't be guilty of treason because he's English, but you're saying he should be angry about it, right?
Yeah.
He should respond, maybe, even, yeah, like you say, maybe arrest him, maybe whatever. But he should be angry. Notice the king's response.
Or else what follows?
Now, why is that odd? Yeah.
I don't know.
Well, again, think of somebody, trying to steal or take something from you that you want to give him, and he said, "Give it to me." He says, "If I don't, what are you going to do to me?" What is that? What kind of impression does that give?
Arrogance?
What?
Arrogance?
Maybe. I think it suggests cowardice. It's like, if you're going to hurt me, yeah, I'll give it to you. So the king of France, Exeter can't hurt him. He's in France. He's surrounded by Frenchmen. So what is the king's response? Like, what are you going to do to me if I don't? That's not the right response. Yeah, you should be, are you kidding? Get the, out of here. We're going to war with you. That's how that's how a king should respond. Look at Exeter.
Let it constrain, for if you hide the crown hidden in your hearts, there you will great glory. Therefore in furious tempest is he coming, and thunder and earthquake like a Job, that if the fire and veil he will compel, and bids you in the holy vows of the Lord. Deliver up the crown and take mercy on the poor souls for removing the hungry. War opens his vasty jaws, and on your head turning the widow's tears, the orphan's cries, the dead man's blood, the pretty maiden's groans, for husbands, fathers, and betrothed lovers, that shall be swallowed in this controversy. This is his claim expressed in my message. Unless the Dauphin be in presence here, to whom expressly I bring greeting to.
So what is Exeter's, what motivation should the king of France have by, why should he not want to fight, is what I'm getting at. Like, you should do this, because otherwise, what's gonna happen? We're gonna kill people, and he mentions they're gonna be widows, orphans, dead men, maidens, and husbands, fathers. You're gonna hurt a lot of Frenchmen. So think of your citizens and agree with the king. Let's see what the king of France says.
For us, we will consider of this further. Tomorrow shall you bear our full intent back to our brother England.
So essentially, what is the king of France gonna do?
It's gonna kill you.
No, he's not.
Oh, shit.
What did you just read it? What did he say?
He said we're gonna consider it, maybe. Said maybe we might do this.
Yeah, we're gonna think about it. Are you kidding me? You want your president, you want your king to say, yeah, we'll think about it. I might quit because I'm afraid of you. That's not what you want your king to say, but that's what this guy says.
Kings are wrong.
The Dauphin, let's see what he says. Who's our Dauphin?
Sean.
All right.
For the Dauphin, I stand here for him. What to him from England?
So he's asking Exeter, what does he think about me? We gotta stop here. We'll start here tomorrow, and we'll start with the Dauphin.